Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope podcast. I'm back with more sporting news. Now, Dick Vitale made a lot of headlines recently when he tweeted that Caitlin Clark being ranked the ninth rated guard in the WNBA is jealousy. Now, this is wrong for several reasons, and I'll get into those in a little bit. But just to preface everything, I'm a huge fan of Dick Vitale and what he meant to college sports specifically. Growing up, listening to college sports, especially college basketball in particular, because that's what he does. Um, his voice is the most recognizable voice in college basketball. Now, growing up, he used to get me excited for the games because he was very animated with his voice and excited for the games, like he was coaching it or like he was had some financial investment into the game. And we don't have commentators like that anymore, announcers like that. We used to have Stuart Scott, and to some degree, we still have Stephen A. Smith, but he's different than those guys. Those guys had a different level of excitement when it comes to this sporting announcements and commentating and analysis. That it didn't feel like they were doing it for the money, but for the love of the sport. Now, the commentators and analysis today, it seems more of it's about monetary gain, things like that. But Dick Vitale and others, especially Stuart Scott, rest in peace. It never felt like that from them. I'm not saying that those other guys are out for money, but it just didn't seem like that way for Dick Vitale or Stuart Scott because the money wasn't out back then. But just to give you that preference, I'm a huge fan of Dick Vitale's commentary and analysis, but he is wrong on the comments that he's made, and I'll get into the reasons why now. First, let me address Dick Vitale, crediting um, Caitlin Clark for the ascension of the league. Now, she had a hand into that, but you have to credit Angel Reese as well because they had to create the good guy, bad guy narrative. They had to create the good guy, good versus evil battle, which I'll get into in a little bit about Angel Reese and another topic about why people hate Angel Reese. But she is a part of that. So when Magic and Bird were, tearing up the NBA and creating this whole new era for them and sending the NBA to heights never seen before. They didn't just give Bird the credit or they just didn't give Magic the credit. They gave both players the credit, regardless of what Angel's Reese stats are. Um, she was responsible for creating that narrative because people wasn't paying attention to Caitlin Clark before the Angel Reese spat between the disagreement between them on the court. So you have to give credit to Angel Reese. You just can't give the credit uh, to Caitlin Clark. Same thing with Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell. You can't just give credit to Bill Russell because he won all the rings. Wilt Chamberlain was bringing up the stats and, having people, look at the stats and scoring 100 points a game. So you have the credit to both people. So I think it's unfair just to give the credit to one person, regardless of what you think they did for the league. And then those fans that, and if you want to, and that's another flaw that I hate about just giving Caitlin Clark the credit for why people are watching the sport is because for the simple fact of those fans that are just there for Caitlin Clark, what are you going to do if she doesn't play anymore or she retires? Then you stop watching the sport and then it's back to where it is. So it's not, you're doing a disservice to the WNBA and to women's sports when you say it's just about Caitlin Clark, because those fans that are there just for one person, that's not sustainable growth. If when she leaves, they're just going to leave and say, well, Caitlin Clark doesn't play anymore, so we don't have to watch anymore. And then the league is back. It's going to regress tremendously. And that could, be the cause of the league being able to deteriorate. So I don't think that's sustainable growth, that people keep saying that Caitlin Clark is the only reason that they're watching WNBA when there's plethora of players that have done so much more and have won championships. You have Aja Wilson with her 3 championships. You have Nafisha Collier. You have so many others. Even Paige Becker is just coming along. She's just as good as a Caitlin Clark. Probably not as a passer, but as a scorer, she's right up there with her. And you have so many other players that are doing phenomenal things in the WNBA. Even Angel Reese this year, and with her rebounding statistics and records that she's breaking. So don't just put it on one player because they're doing a disservice to the league and not creating sustainable growth. So that's for one. Another thing is I think it's disrespect to rate players above her because she's been injured most of the year. Now she's according to a couple of days ago, she's missed 10 out of the 17 games. So she's only played 7 games. So I can't give you credit for what you did last year, um, skill wise, when there's been players that have been putting in stats and putting in minutes this year. So that would be a disservice to other players or discrediting other players. The best ability is availability. We all know that. So if you're not available, how can we give you credit for it? We can't give you credit off the strength of because we don't know what you're going to be when you come back. And we hope she comes back to that same status or same ability that when she comes back. But what if she's perpetually injured? We can't give her credit for what she's done. We got to give credit for what you've done this year. Now, if you want to say all time or something like that, even though she's only played like 2 years, you can do that. But her being ranked ninth this year is just based off her availability. And I think they did her a service or did her a favor by even putting her ninth because she hasn't been available for all of these games. So that's another thing. So I don't think it's, and Dick Vitale said it was jealousy, and I want to address that because I don't think it's jealousy because if that's the case, we can say it's racism that players like Asia Wilson, who's won 3 championships, is not getting the credit that Caitlin Clark did. Asia Wilson has a tennis shoe, which they didn't give her, Nike didn't give her really until Caitlin Clark came along, which is kind of it looks bad on Nike as well as the WNBA. But Asia Wilson has a shoe. She has 3 championships. She won in college, unlike Caitlin Clark. So why, if you're gonna say it's a jealousy toward Caitlin, we can definitely say it's a racism toward the athletes that's already been playing in the league, especially the black athletes, female athletes. Now, there's been a lot of, Asia Wilson just starting to get the Gatorade commercials and advertisements and things like that, and that's after Caitlin Clark. And people want to say, well, that's because Caitlin Clark was able to get her these things. No, she was already had these accolades way before Caitlin Clark was in freshman in college. So, um, but everybody's wondering how can an athlete surpass an athlete that has won things. That's like Jordan win all these championships, and then Kobe comes along and they give him all the credit and all these things. It just shouldn't happen that way. But Dick Vitale is wrong on this one, and that's the way I feel on the matter. And as always, until next time, I'll see you next time.